Alright guys, here is the tutorial on how to do our controllers right on the face. This way might seems like, a little bit hard to do, but it's somehow related to a lot of things like especially secondary controls you want to do with clusters later on, but for now we're going to apply that technique on the facial controllers. The first thing you want to do is, of course, have your controller created. In our case, let me go create the eyebrow controller first, the overall controller first. Okay, so this overall eyebrow controller will control the eyebrow entirely, go up and down, left and right, and probably later on we can go rotation and stuff, but that's something depending on do you need it or not. You can always use individual controllers to create the shape you want. But anyway, so I just created the shape for the eyebrow controller, and next thing I want to do is name it. So AC left brow overall controller. Alright, now I want to go freeze transformation on it, and then because when we are animating, we don't want to animate with some value there, and we don't need a group for that to protect it. The reason for that is because it's just not necessary, because we're not needing IKFK multiple control inputs, so as long as it works on itself, we don't need a reservation of the location. So let's just call it GRP, but have a group is always nice, and center pivot on that. Alright, now to do the control, all I need to do is set driven keys. So let's go to animation, key, set driven key, set. Our driver will be the controller, the driven ones will be the locators around the eyebrow. Now here what I'm gonna select will be those non-eyebrow controllers, and they will be the driven one, and their channels, their driven channels will be translation and rotation, and the driver channel will be the translation Y for now to do the eyebrow up and down. You know what, let me drag it down lower, so it seems like it's at the default position, and freeze transformation. Okay, now let's start keying. Before you move anything, key it first, and let's drag it up. And in our case here, I think 3 might be a good value, and then key it again, and let's start moving those things. I can move them together first. Okay, and then of course the middle part is the one that has to be moved the most. Okay, now if your shape is not looking good, you can start tweaking your weighting, but here I actually have a decent weighting already, if not perfect. I think maybe those can take a little bit more, so let me go pen skin weighting 2, and then pen this one and give it some more around here, maybe that one too, but I think it's generally okay. And that one can take more on the middle, and maybe smooth there. And that one can take a little bit more, maybe smooth a little there. And then that one, let's see, kind of okay, but maybe not that much there. So let me use that one to take more of that. Of course, this one, I think this one should take more of that, and then smooth it all. Okay. Anyway, just do the fixing of the weighting down the way. That way you're sure that the weighting you eventually ends up with is better for the eyebrow. Oh, damn it! I think I forget to key it, so don't do that mistake. Drag them up and then you key them before you drag it anywhere else. That way the shape is memorized. If you don't, then you probably need to redo. Oh, one more thing you can do is rotate this a little bit if you think that's necessary, to form the shape. And of course, to maintain the volume, you may want to drag your controller forward a little. Even some rotation would be nice. But yeah, let's key them. Alright, now if I drag my controller, you can see I have this eyebrow up movement. Eyebrow down is pretty much the same thing. Let's just drag the controller down and then drag the locators down, and then of course tweak them individually. There is really no secret magic here. I think the most important thing is that you know the shape you're doing. That's the key of getting a nice shape. So make sure that if you are not sure how the shape looks like, get a mirror or look at some references so you know what kind of shape you actually need, instead of just trying to do something, imagine something, especially when you're doing realistic ones. Alright, so that is done. So let's go key them again, and that way we have eyebrow up and down like this. Nice and easy. Of course you can do other things, like for example, you want to tilt the eyebrow, you can rotate it, and of course the channel, let's see, will be the Z channel, rotation Z. So let's go select rotation Z and then key those things and rotate it this way. And then let's in this case I think I just need to drag that up, maybe rotate that a little. Okay, and then drag the other down and maybe rotate it like this. Of course the others has to be moved a little, the surrounding areas. But the idea is, but the workflow is the same. Just set driving keys on those controllers or locators in our case. Anyways, now I can key them, and then I have this tilting eyebrow control. And don't worry, it will work with the set driving key we had before. I'll blend it together with no problem. Okay, so that is the basic idea, and I'm not gonna do the other rotation because I believe you know what to do on that one. So that's the overall controllers, overall controller of the eyebrow. Let's do the individual ones. For the individual ones, I prefer to use a polysphere. Create sphere. Okay. The reason I use sphere is it's simpler, and because it's not geometry, so you can differentiate it from the model. Like you can go show and unshow the nervous surfaces. You can unshow the sphere. So it's just having that differentiation is always good. Okay, so let me go and move it to the first locator. Okay, scale it down, freeze transformation, and name it AC left bra, inner bra, or we can actually just copy the name of the locator and then change the locator to AC. Oh, sorry, AC instead. Cool. Now to use the controller to control the locator, because the locator already has set driving key on it, what we want to do is creating a new group, call it the follow group or something, and then the easiest way to make it follow, not the easiest, but in our case the only way to make it follow is to connect attributes. The attribute we want to connect will be the controller to the new group we created. Now let's call this follow group. Okay, translation to translation, rotation to rotation, scale to scale, that way. And when we drag the controller, of course the locator will be following it. Alright, now there is a little problem here. When I drag my primary controller up, the locator changes, but the ball doesn't change the location, which is a little bit not intuitive, although they actually could work without any problem. Their movements will be combined together. But just to make it look fancier, it requires some work to do. The easiest way is you select a vertex. Oh, sorry. You need to go with nothing selected. Let's go create a group first, and then let's go copy the name of our controller and paste it into the group, and then call this group follow group. Now this follow group will be following that vertex, so let's go grab that vertex and then control select the new group we created, which has nothing in it. Do constraint point on poly constraint. That way, if you select that group, now you see it's sitting there. Okay, let's go select the rotation and break connection on it, because I don't want my controller to be rotating around. All I wanted to do is to follow, so probably better to just zero out the rotation there. Now the good thing about this one now is no matter how I change the surface, how I change the deformation of the geometry, that group will always follow the vertex on that geometry. So when I drag it up, the group also goes up. So the answer becomes super easy. All we want it, if we want to make our controller to move with the skin, all we have to do is parent our controller to the group. Okay, now I need actually two groups to do that. The reason for that is one group we need to use for the composition or composite, anyway, GRP. So this group will be compositing the movement we did on the controller later, to reverse the movement and rely on the following of this group instead. This group will be used to prevent weird values, to prevent the values of the composition. So let's just call this the group. Okay, GRP. And then drag this group to the group we did before that follows the skin. Now if you open the hierarchy, you see that we have the controller, the compensate group, that the protecting group, and then the group we use to follow the skin. That way, when the skin changes, you'll see that the controller follows. For some reason, I lost the let me delete the history on it. I lost the material. So let me go reassign the material. I think it has to be Lambert 1. No, something's wrong. Huh. What's the material? It does have Lambert 1 material. I have no idea. Let me duplicate it and delete the wrong one. Maya is all kind of weird, wonky. Anyways, but the functionality works now. When I drag it, you see now my controller follows it. All right, now to make it works even better, because now if I drag my controller, you see my controller. Oh, because I use a new controller, so I have to reconnect the thing. The controller remember we use the controller to connect to the translation of the group of the locator, a new group we created called the follow group. We connected before, but somehow my controller becomes wonky, so I delete the original one and use a duplicated version. Anyways, now when I drag my controller, it goes up, but it's kind of like having double transformations. To fix that, I need to use my compensate group, which is this one. And what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna use a multiply divide. It's better to name everything. Oh. Okay, and then what I want to do is connect the translate to the multiply divide and multiply that by -1, 1 by 1, so they're all -1. No, so -1, and then the output goes to the translation of the compensate group. What this does is when I move my controller up, the group moves down. So when I move up like 10 units, it's probably a big number. If I move it up only 2 units, right, my group on top of it goes down 2 units. So essentially the sphere is supposed to be not moving at all, right? If it moves up 2 units and then the parent moves down 2 units, it's supposed to be not moving at all, but the reason it moves is because its top group here is following the skin because of this point on poly constraint. That's why it moves. Okay, but after all, everything here will be working as we expected. So that's the basic idea of that controller. Let me just do one more. First of all, go create a controller. It can be a sphere, but if you prefer to use circle, that's also okay. It's just the shape. All we are utilizing is the translation node of that. Okay, I'll go modify freeze transformation, and let's call this AC left bra, middle bra. Okay, now this controller will then have a group. Oh, grouping gave it a weird loss of material for no good reason at all. Which what can I say? The developer of Maya is just getting worse and worse and worse. Anyways. Oh, I think I picked something I shouldn't do. Including that. Anyways, let's keep doing that. So I fixed that problem. Let's call the group GRP. Okay. So center pivot. I think the center pivot doesn't really matter, but let's just do it. Group it again, and this one will, oh, sorry. So the first group will be the compensate group. And then the top group will be just the group. Okay. Oh. That's the grouping for now for this controller. Losses the material again. Anyways, let's set this up first. And then I want an empty group, so Control G with nothing selected, and this group will be the follow group of our new controller. Okay. Now this follow group, this follow group will then be constrained by the geometry. Let's go select that vertex and then Control select the group, go constraint, point on poly. And then of course break connections on the rotation and zero them out. And then drag the controller, our controllers group down to that following group. Okay, then let me duplicate the controller and delete the original one to fix the weird material issue. And the last step is, right now it's following, so but it's not controlling the locator yet. To control the locator, all we have to do is a group for the locator as the follow group, and then what we need to do is connect attributes. Clear things out and drag my follow group here, and also drag the controller in, and then the controller will be controlling all the three translations. Oh, one more thing is that we need to connect the compensation, right? The compensation group will be connected with a multiply divide. Copy the name and then paste it here, and then we connect translate to input, output to the translate of the compensate. The input will be the controller, and then the multiply divide input tools will be on -1 to compensate the movement. Alright, now if you move the controller, you can see it's kind of controlling that part, and it also follows other controllers when they're supposed to be moved. Alright, I leave that one for you. Okay, now one last little trick is that how do you find the position proper for this one, because I want this one to function just like those. To do so, I need to find the closed point on the surface to this controller. To do so, I just need to select the geometry and then go to constraint. There is something called the closed point. Maya will then create two locators. Let's drag the locator at the origin. You see now the other locator will be the closed point to that locator. So all I have to do is match transform to move the locator to our controller. That way the other locator will be the closed point on the surface to our controller. Okay, now to get the information of the UV, because the point on poly constraint relies on UV coordinate, so all I have to know is the UV coordinate of that point on the geometry. To do so, I just need to go and find a node called the this one, the closed point on mesh node, which is if you cannot find it, you can go create a new tab and select the position locator and show all the inputs, and alright, and then the direct the node before it will be the node we're looking for. Let's open its result, and you see the parameter u and v sampled, and that this UV coordinate will be the UV coordinate of that point on the geometry. And notice that it doesn't have to be a vertex, it's just that particular location. It does have a UV coordinate, and those two values are the UV coordinate of that. So all I have to do is select the geometry, and then the before we do anything on the controller, let's also create a empty group. Let's call that empty group the follow group of our controller. Okay, now this follow group will then be constrained by our geometry. So geometry is first, and then control select the follow group and do constraint. This time it's also the point on poly constraint. Okay, when you do that, you'll see that our controller will be moved to there, which is, not the right position. That's because we have 0 zeros in the UV coordinate. To read the UV coordinate from this one we sampled before, all we have to do is go grab the constraint we did, the point on poly constraint. It does have the input for the UVs. Let's drag the U to U, drag the V to V. Okay, now if you go take a look and select our overall follow, you see that that follow group will be moved to exactly where that locator is. When all those is done, you can then select that close point on mesh and delete it, because all we need are these UV coordinate when they are sampled, and we know that already we don't need those nodes anymore. So of course we don't need those two locators at all after that either. So that way we have a perfect follow group for our controller, and just to make it follow, all I have to do is group it, and then call that the group of our controller, and then we also need a compensate group. So let's name that compensate group. Okay. Now our compensate group will be connected with our controller. Okay, and the way to control them is the same. Just use the multiply divide and connect translate to the input 1, output to translate. Input 2 will be all negative ones. Cool. Now when you drag the controller, you can see it's able to control the skin. I think I didn't drag it actually underneath the follow GRP. Let's drag it then. Alright, then when I drag it, it seems to be controlling it. You see it's tilting. That's why I don't like the rotation to be constrained. So let's break the connection there. I can leave those rotations alone though. This should not change anything dramatically, and that should be it. That should be everything I want you to do, but I want you to do this one and 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, right? 1, 2, 3, 4 controllers on the other side. Okay. So you will give me that one, that one, that one, and the overall control of the right side controller, and that's for the assignment next class. I think you guys got a little bit confusion in class, but the concept here is really simple. We use the values of the controller to move the locators group, and but we have a compensate group to move the controller back. And instead of moving the controller by itself, we use the skin's constraint. We use the point on geometry or point on poly constraint to move the controller's top group to make it look like it's moving, but the actual moving thing here is the group of the locator and the skin. The controller itself is moved up and moved down, and it's following the movement of the point on the skin. Okay, it's still really hard to explain, but I think you get it already. It just takes some time to, get familiar, and you will see this kind of setup a lot. So I want to make sure that you understand the essence of this setup. Okay.